Hey folks, how you all doing? So today we're going to do another rankings video. This rankings video is going to be an Oasis studio albums video. For those of you who don't know, I'm wearing a hat. I generally do that on my channel. I've done some funny hats over the time, and this is one I thought I'd put on this time other than my usual hat that I do wear. This is a Viking hat, so it pays a bit of homage to my Viking past, when my mother's family were actually Vikings, who invaded England, you know, several hundred years ago, whatever it happened to be. So yeah, I am of Viking heritage on my mother's side, so wearing my little Viking hat today for something different. So yeah, this albums ranking isn't going to be the 7 studio albums by Oasis. I thought I would also include, to mix things up a bit, the 2 BDI albums, the 4 Noel Gallagher High Flying Birds albums, and also the 3 Liam Gallagher solo albums in his own name. As we all know, he was with BDI. So this is going to be different than the usual rankings video. Couple of albums which I knew were going to be in my top 2 or 3 are definitely there, or in my top 4. 3 of them are definitely there. A couple of the ones that I thought would be really low are still really low at the bottom of my list, but the rest is a bit of a didn't quite turn out exactly as I thought, some of them anyway. As Richard McCook said in a video or a comment a while ago, it wouldn't be a Lloyd Boone ranking video unless there were some eyebrow raisers or some surprises. That is the case in here, especially with one album. But we'll get onto that when I get to it, and I'll explain why it's not probably where it should be according to most other people. But this is my ranking, and this is the way I see the Gallagher Brothers studio albums since 1994. 16 albums in all, and number 16 I have Different Gear, Still Speeding. It's the first BDI album, so it's basically the first album that Gallagher had released since Oasis split up, released in 2011. There's very little on here that I actually like. I'm surprised I went forward and actually bought the second BDI album after I disliked this one so much. It just sounds like a collection of songs that were rejected from the 7th Oasis album, Dig Out Your Soul, a couple of years earlier. You know, half of that album, the Dig Out Your Soul one, was written by Andy Bell, Jem Archer, or Liam Gallagher. This whole album is written by these guys, who are obviously, you know, Oasis. There's probably 3 songs on here I do like. And yeah, it's just a very forgettable album in my opinion. Favourite tracks are 2 of the singles, Bring the Light and 4 Letter Word. The rest of it I can basically take or leave, and this album comes in at an incredibly low 3 out of 10 for me. At number 15 on my list, surprise for some people, not a surprise for others, we have Oasis, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. 2000, this was released. It's their 4th studio album. It's overblown, pretentious drivel, basically, but not as overblown with drivel as Be Here Now, which will come up shortly. And the reason why this is below that one is because the songs aren't quite as good in my opinion. They're good songs. There's nothing really bad on this album. It's just that nothing really stands out for me except for 3 songs, and that's Little James, Fucking in the Bushes, the opening track, and Go Let It Out. The album comes in at 5 out of 10. Now, the one thing I did notice when I was listening to all these albums is that Oasis, every one of their albums opens up with an absolute cracker of a track. The album just bangs straight into it. And that's a good thing. A lot of bands can't do that album after album, but Oasis did it. Liam Gallagher does it for the most part, and so does Noel. They just seem to put their oomph songs to really get you into an album straight off. So at number 14 on my list now, we have Oasis' 3rd studio album, Be Here Now, released in 1997. As I said about the other one, you know, it's overblown, pretentious, The songs are just so lengthy. Um, these songs are like, what, 6-7 minutes long. All Around the World is, what, 9.5, almost 10 minutes long. It's just really overblown. And Noel Gallagher is good at 3.5 minute pop songs. He's no good at pretending he's a guitarist, a virtuoso on the guitar. Basically, he isn't one. He never has been. He never will be. So to pretend that he is just absolutely nuts. He can't write material like that. But again, there's nothing bad on this album. The songs are just overblown and too lengthy for my liking anyway. Best songs for me, Stand By Me, even though All Around the World is 9+ minutes long. If it was a 3.5 minute song, it'd be an absolute masterpiece, but it's still one of my favourites on here. And Magic Pie. At number 13 on my list, we have 2008's Dig Out Your Soul. It's the 7th and final Oasis album. The first half of this album is really, really good in my opinion. All the songs except for one in the first 6 were written by Noel Gallagher. Great, great songs. The back half of this album sucks because 5 of the last 6 songs were either written by Andy Bell, Jem Archer or Liam Gallagher, and they're really not worthy of an Oasis album. And as I said, on number 16, the Beady Eye album, they're not even as good as the ones on this album. It shows you how bad Different Gear Still Speeding actually is. Best songs for me, The Turn-In, Shock of Lightning is really, really good, and the opening track, Bag It Up, album comes in at 6 out of 10. Number 12 on my list, we have Noel Gallagher and the High Flying Birds with their 3rd studio album from 2017, entitled Who Built the Moon. His most experimental album, which is why this ranks so low for me. To me, Liam Gallagher is a great writer of the 3.5/4 minute pop song that's catchy, hooky, leaves memorable tunes in your head. When he tries to experiment and go outside the box, this is where he fails. And the reason he fails for me is that I don't think he's a master musician, and he cannot do things like that unless you are a proficient musician. You can't step outside the box and do things you're not familiar with. Works with some artists. To me, it doesn't work with Noel Gallagher. He's better off just being Noel Gallagher. The same as you'll find out later, Liam Gallagher is just Liam Gallagher, and he sticks to what he does best. Bands like the Rolling Stones really don't step outside of their comfort zone. When they have done in the past, say doing things like Dandelion, We Love You, all the psychedelic stuff, it fails really bad. But when they go back to what they're good at, they're masterful. And this is why bands like AC/DC never stepped outside of their comfort zone, because they're good at what they do. And I think this is Noel Gallagher's downfall with this album. Look, there are a lot of good songs on here, especially the ones when he's being Noel Gallagher. And they do compensate for the ones that are more experimental. Best... Who Built the Moon? Yeah, the best song on here for me is my favourite Noel Gallagher song of all time, which is Holy Mountain. That's my favourite song of his entire career, and that's why this album comes in at number 12 and probably not number 14 or 15. Number 11 on my list, we go back to Oasis here with Don't Believe the Truth from 2005. It was their 6th studio album. There's some excellent tracks on here. How many tracks? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 11 tracks on here. I would say 6 are absolutely brilliant. 3 are pretty good, and there's a couple of filler tracks in there as well. But overall, this is a fantastic album. And again, another great opening track in Turn Up the Sun. But yeah, just a couple of filler. Best tracks on here for me: Importance of Being Idle, Lila's absolutely fantastic, and Guess God Thinks I'm Able. Very good album, just has some filler on it. Oh, that's 6.3 out of 10, that one. Number 10 on my list, this is the one that's going to surprise most people. Definitely maybe Oasis debut album. Now, before anyone bags me on this, the reason is Oasis never took off until the Morning Glory album outside of the UK. The album stalled in 23 or 28 on the Australian charts, and that was one of the highest chart placings anywhere in the world. I'm not saying it was, but one of the highest ones outside of the UK. So yeah, they weren't really popular until Morning Glory, and if I'd have bought this one first instead of Morning Glory, then I probably maybe or maybe not have gone back for Morning Glory. It's a good solid album, it's just nothing special to me. I know people rate it as one of the great debut albums. You know, the best songs for me are Supersonic, Diggs' Dinner, and Live Forever. Probably they're probably my three favourites. Married with Children's also another great song, but I just don't see anything special in this, and I'll tell you what, 99% of people outside the UK would be on my side with this one. At number 9 on my list, we go to 2019 with Liam Gallagher's second solo album. Why me? Why not? It's Liam. It sounds like Liam. And this is what he does. He sticks with what he can do, what his vocals are capable of doing, and he sticks with what his fan base wants. He doesn't try to be clever or experimental. But yeah, there's a few really, really good songs on here. Yeah, Shockwave is brilliant. One of Us is brilliant. Oh, One of Us sounds like an Olive Branch song to me. Sounds like he's trying to make amends with Noel. Whether that's how he wrote it or not, I don't know, but it just sounds like it's holding out an olive branch to Noel to, you know, forgive and forget all their trespasses and problems they had. But yeah, this is just a really, really good album. This album comes in at 7 out of 10, which isn't bad for a guy that a few years earlier couldn't write songs. So, good album. Number 8 on my list. I expect this album to jump up considerably over the next few years, but because it's almost brand new, it's only at number 8 on my list. It's less than a year old, and it is Council Skies by Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. It's their 4th album. It was released last year, towards the back end of the year actually, so it hasn't been out that long. There's nothing experimental on here. It's just a solid album of Noel Gallagher being Noel Gallagher. There's acoustics on here, there's orchestrations, there's a few little rock tracks, but it's Noel Gallagher being Noel Gallagher. Lyrically, it's very mature as well. It's probably his most mature album, I find. I see it as being a bit retrospectful as well, looking back maybe at times, but yeah, it's just a really, really solid album, and I expect that to jump into my top 5 surely over the next 2 or 3 years with some more repeat listening. But yeah, to be number 8 out of 16 when it's only just been released is an excellent, excellent effort. 7 out of 10. At number 7 on my list, we go back to Noel Gallagher again with the High Flying Birds. It's their second album, 2015's Chasing Yesterday. Up there with his debut album. Well, almost. It's almost as good. It's a bit harder edged guitar driven songs on some of this. The songs just aren't quite as good as what's on his debut solo album, but they're almost there. It's absolutely 99% of this album is killer. There's no filler. Even the tracks that aren't too good, as in aren't my favourites, are still pretty good. Riverman probably my favourite track on here, In the Heat of the Moment, and let's go for the Mexican. That's a really, really cool song. And The Ballad of the Mighty Eye. So yeah, a really, really solid album from Noel Gallagher. At number 6 on my list, this one's a lot higher than most people would put it. I believe it didn't sell back in the day simply because the first BDI album sold well and people didn't like it, so they never went back for a second helping. This is the album entitled B.E. It was released in 2013. It's the second BDI album. It's a far better collection of songs, in my opinion. I think the guys really honed their skills after their first album of working together, away from Oasis, away from Noel, and I just think it's a great collection of songs. I probably have this album playing in my car over the last couple of years more than any other album by the Gallagher brothers in their entire career, apart from the album that's number 1 on my list. I just think it's a fantastic album. I know it didn't sell very well, but people are missing this album. I think it's great. Flick of the Finger, absolutely brilliant. Second Bite of the Apple, great song. And my favourite song on the album, Face the Crowd. Excellent album. If you get a chance to buy this, even second hand, it's worth it. You can get it on eBay for a couple of dollars, I believe now. It's well worth it. Great album. At number 5 on my list, we have the only Gallagher career album that I do actually own on vinyl, and it's the clear vinyl of Liam's third solo album, Come On You Know, which was released in 2022. It is actually clear, by the way. All that writing and everything isn't actually on it. It's just a clear album. It would have been nice if Come On You Know was actually imprinted into the vinyl, but then it would look backwards on the wrong side, so it would look wrong anyway if it was clear. Okay, it's his most eclectic album. You turn the album on and the album opens up with A Child's Choir, which was totally unexpected for a Gallagher album. It's just wow. It just really gets you back on your seat when you first listen to it, and it's totally unexpected. There's also a song on here. Which one is it off the top of my head? Can't think off the top of my head right now, but it's got a distinct sound similar to the Beatles' Rain, with all backwards guitars and the drum loops and everything else. It's absolutely brilliant. There's some incredible ballads and rockers on this album. There's probably more ballads on this album than any other album of their entire career, and I think it offsets the album really well. You got rocker and a ballad and a rocker and a ballad. It just offsets it and gives a different edge. It's just a really good album. I'm expecting this one to possibly go up in my rankings over the next few years. Also 8.1 out of 10 for that one. Number 4 on my list. Number 3 and number 4. Before I started this ranking, my number 4 was number 3, and my number 3 was number 4, and I couldn't decide which one was going to go where, so I had to play them again and get one last look at which one I actually preferred over the other. And number 4 on my list, I have the first Liam Gallagher solo album, As You Were. This was released in 2017, so since 2017 he's released 4 solo albums in his own name, so it's pretty, I wouldn't say prolific, but he's certainly getting the groove on over the last few years, and he's got another album coming out in April or May, I believe. It's with someone else, I can't think who it is at this stage, but anyway, regardless of that, number 4 on my list from 2017, Liam's first solo album. It's an eclectic album. It contains rockers, alt rock and ballads. This is Liam Gallagher at his best, doing everything Liam Gallagher should do. Nothing pretentious, nothing outside the box. He's not trying to put square pegs in round holes. He's just putting Liam Gallagher in his pigeonhole and doing what Liam Gallagher does best. It just works on every level for me. It's just a fantastic album, which is why I was struggling between this one and number 3 for my number 3 and 4 spot. 9 out of 10. Great stuff. At number 3 on my list, this is one I just talked about, could have been number 3 or 4. I had to put this in number 3 spot. It's the first Noel Gallagher High Flying Birds album, released in 2011, entitled Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. Excellent album. It contains songs that are distinctly Oasis, and my favourite Oasis songs tended to be the ones that Noel sang, actually, when I look back on all their albums. So to have a whole album of Noel Gallagher singing just absolutely blew my mind. It was just one of those, for want of a better phrase, it was a wet dream come true. A whole album of Noel Gallagher singing. Not that he's a great vocalist, but I just like what he does. It was just a nice, refreshing Oasis sound. I think there was none of the bullshit of the arguments and pettiness and bickering that went on with Liam during Oasis. He was free to write Oasis songs the way he wanted to write them, and they were written for his vocals, not for Liam's. So I think there was a big relief in him when Oasis split, and this album comes in at 9.3 out of 10. Number 2 and number 1 on my list. Number 1's going to be the big shock for everyone. Apart from definitely maybe Rank Solo, but number 2 for me, Morning Glory, the first album of theirs I purchased, first album of theirs that most people around the world actually purchased, released in 1995, second Oasis album. I mean, what more can you say? Champagne Supernova, Don't Look Back in Anger, Roll With It, Hello, the title track, She's Electric, Wonderwall. I mean, I'm not keen on Wonderwall. It's been played a billion times, but there's no filler on here. If there was a weak track on here, to me it would be Wonderwall nowadays, but back in the day that was the song that got most people into Oasis, so I can't really complain about it. Every track on here is absolute killer. It's almost the greatest hits album, and Champagne Supernova is probably my favourite Oasis song of all time. I would probably say it is. 9.3 out of 10 without a shadow of a doubt, which any fan will know what's coming up at number 1 in my list, or you may have forgotten about this album because it really wasn't a big seller. Got to number 1 in the UK, but wasn't a massive seller because it went in and out the charts really quick. From 2002, the 5th Oasis studio album, I have Heathen Chemistry. You had the overblown, self-indulgent, visions of grandiose of albums with all those guitar solos of Be Here Now, Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. And I think I got sick of those albums really, really quickly. And then Oasis came back with this perfect album of 3/4 minute pop songs, soft rock songs. They were catchy, they were hooky, they were everything that Oasis should be. And Noel's songs on here absolutely outstripped Liam's any day of the week. I think probably 4 of my top 5 Oasis songs actually appear on this album, obviously apart from Champagne Supernova, which I just mentioned. But it's just absolutely brilliant. She Is Love, Little by Little, double A-sided hit with Noel on both tracks doing lead vocals, absolutely brilliant. The Hindu Times, again, another great opening track on an album. It just set the mood and the tone for the entire album. And Songbird, a jaunty little, almost New Seekers type sound from Liam on that song. It's just absolutely brilliant. It's probably the greatest Oasis album that 99% of music fans have not heard. It's absolutely brilliant. I reckon every song off this, except for the instrumental, could have been a hit single in the UK, most parts of Europe, and decent sized hit everywhere else, I guess, in North America and Australia. I just think it's absolutely brilliant. It's my go-to Oasis album. It's the album when people say, give me an Oasis album to listen to. I wouldn't give them Morning Glory. Most people have got that. I would tell them to go and get this one. My number 1 Oasis album of all time comes in at a solid 9.5 out of 10. Anyway, guys, sorry to bore you for the last 25 minutes. But that's my ranking of the Gallaghers studio albums from 1994 up to 2023. Leave your comments in the comments section below. How would you rank Noel's solo career, Liam's solo career, BDI and Oasis? How would you rank the studio albums, or at least your top 5 studio albums? Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'll probably have my regular hat on next time. I don't like these hats all the time. Anyway, as I said, stay safe, take care, all for now, catch you around, and bye, folks.